Happy Easter, everyone. Welcome back to Images of Easter. So far, we have traveled the road to the resurrection, beginning with Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. Then we joined the trial of Jesus in the painting Ecce Homo by Cesare. Next, we climbed the hill of Golgotha in Francisco de Zurbarán's Crucifixion. And today, we celebrate the resurrection with Rembrandt in Supper at Emmaus, painted in 1628.
But wait, Miss Kilbride, this does not look like the resurrection to me.
Why is that, Mary?
Well, at the resurrection, Jesus rises from the dead and the stone is rolled away from the tomb, and he appears to his apostles.
That's true.
But I'm not even sure where they are in this painting, or even who's in it.
Well, that's one big reason I picked this painting to study, Mary. It's mysterious.
Well, I can't wait to get into it. First, why is it called Supper at Emmaus?
Great question. Let's turn to the Bible for the answer. In Luke 24, 13 to 35, it tells a great story about two disciples leaving Jerusalem right after the crucifixion. They were walking to a village called Emmaus. That was about 7 miles out, and they were plenty upset.
I remember this. It says, as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him.
And he asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?"
Right, and then one of them says, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?"
And Jesus says, "What things?" I love that.
And the disciples proceed to tell Jesus everything that just happened to this man they thought was the Messiah, about his great ministry, and then his crucifixion, even his resurrection, which was witnessed by some of their own friends. But they didn't believe them.
So Jesus patiently begins to point out all of these wonderful prophecies about the Messiah that the man they mentioned had fulfilled. And they are so filled with joy and hope that they ask him to please not walk on, but stay with them that night. And here we get to the scene of this painting, the Supper at Emmaus.
So that's where they are right now. They're at the inn where they were sleeping.
That's right, exactly. And we are at a crucial moment because Jesus has just sat down to dinner with them. And up until now, his identity was somehow kept secret. But in Luke 24:30, it says, when he was at table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. And then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And he disappeared from their sight.
This reminds me a lot of the Last Supper.
That's because the Last Supper was the way he wanted them to remember him. So when he again broke the bread at Emmaus, their eyes were opened, and they realized who he was.
Is this like the Mass?
What do you mean, Mary?
Well, in the Mass, we have the bread and the wine, but it's only when the priest says Jesus' words, "This is my body and this is my blood," that we recognize Jesus in the Eucharist.
Well said, Mary. And like all the apostles at the Last Supper, in this painting we have 3 different responses to Jesus' invitation.
I can see that the man at the top of the painting is very surprised.
Yes, he actually pulls back like he's in shock.
And is the second reaction the person in the background?
Yes. This person just goes about her work, untouched as yet by the miracle that is taking place next to her.
Though I do see a light next to her, as if maybe God is just beginning to reach her.
Yeah, that's a great reading of the symbolism, Mary.
But Miss Kilbride, there isn't a third person in this painting.
Look again. There is a person hidden down in the shadows. Let's turn the lights on and you can see him.
Wow, I never even saw this person before. So he's dropped to his knees in front of Jesus. Even his chair has fallen over.
Now we see the most extreme response to Jesus.
It's actually pretty interesting that he's in the shadows.
This whole painting is an interesting use of light and shadow. Rembrandt, even in his depiction of Jesus' birth, never shows Jesus. He shows the light created by Jesus, Rembrandt is trying to make Jesus one among all of us. And he's much more interested in focusing on our response to Jesus' revelation.
I love that the man on the floor becomes one with Jesus' shadow.
Yes, it kind of reminds me of Jesus' parting words to his disciples just before he goes to be crucified. In John 17:14, he says, I have given them your word, and the world does not know them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world.
So that means that when you are like Christ, you're kind of like an undercover agent for God.
I like that. Join us next week as we begin to walk the road to Pentecost, 50 days after the resurrection, when the Holy Spirit descended on the disciples, the birthday of the church.
Thank you, Miss Kilbride.
Thank you, Mary.